everyone. I'll just put my hair in the ingredients. Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to make the German soft pretzel recipe. This recipe is one of my favorites, and like, who doesn't love pretzel day? So I've already measured my ingredients. I'm trying to make my video shorter because 15 minutes is too long. So I pre-measured everything. I have flour here. The recipe calls for 5 cups of flour. I'm dividing the recipe in half. So I have 2.5 cups of flour there. It calls for 1/3 cup of brown sugar. I have about 2.5 tablespoons, and 1/2 teaspoon is what half of that would be. It's kitchen math. In here I have my yeast. The recipe calls for 2 1/4 teaspoons or 1 package. I am just using 1 1/8 teaspoons in there. And then I have some baking soda set over here. We're going to use that later when I actually shape and bake the pretzels. So right now I'm just going to put the dough together. I'm going to let it hang out in my kitchen to kind of rise and get airy and let the gluten work. And then I will go from there. So I'm kind of changing up the steps of the recipe because I have the time. In class we only have 90 minutes, so we don't have a lot of time to let things rise. So yeast, again, is a dormant bacteria. I'm going to activate it with some hot water. So the recipe calls for, excuse me, 2 tablespoons of hot water to start. And I'm just stirring that in to kind of get it going. You can smell it instantly, so you know it's working. And it's a little bit chunky, but it'll get broken up in a minute. So then stir in the warm water and the brown sugar. So now I need oh shoot, I divided it in half, but I didn't divide my water in half. Now I gotta think out loud. So I already did a tablespoon too much of water. So I add my brown sugar while I do my math. So, darn it. So 1 1/3 cups divided in half would be 2/3 cups. So that's 10 2/3 tablespoons. So what I'm going to do, because I already did a tablespoon too much of water, is I'm going to measure 2/3 cup of water because that's how much I actually need. And then I'm going to use my tablespoon. I'm going to take out the 1 tablespoon that I already added too much of in there. Now the water, you want it as hot as you can get it out of your tap, because that is the temperature the yeast needs to get going. So here's my 2/3 cup. I removed my 1 tablespoon of the extra that I accidentally added there. And we're going to add that to the mixture as well. So here is my yeast and brown sugar working together. I'm trying to break up all the chunks using the side of the bowl and my spatula. And so we have a nice coffee colored mixture. It smells like yeast is activated. Now the next step of the recipe tells you to slowly add the 5 cups of flour. Stirring occasionally. I am going to just dump some in. When you're working with yeast and flour, oftentimes the amount, the recipe will tell you, like, only use enough flour to make it look like something, whatever it's telling you, and then you need to stop. So you don't automatically assume that all that flour is going to go in here. I'm only going to add enough until it looks like a dough that I want it to look like. So scrape the edges. Now this dough will be ready when it forms a ball that you could pick up. This is way too sticky. I would not be able to pick that up yet. So we're going to do some more flour in there. At school we would use the stand mixers with the dough hook. I have one here. I honestly didn't even think to get it out because I just thought I could do it by hand. And maybe some of you don't have those at home, so this is good for me to show you this way too. But so I'm just mixing the dough up. So that seems like a good dough. You can see I have a ton of flour left in here. I don't know if you can see because the lighting is so bright in the white. So I have a bunch of flour left there. I'm going to hang on to that because I'm going to start kneading the dough on the cupboard or on the table. And when I start kneading, I'm going to need more flour when I do that. Now, even if we were going to use the stand mixers at school, at some point we do put the dough onto the counter and knead it. This is so you have control over how much flour you're adding to the dough. You don't want to make it too dry and thick, and this gives you control over what areas actually need flour. Like, it's a little sticky right here, so I'm going to sprinkle a little on, fold it in half, and I'm going to keep kneading it. Now it calls for a floured countertop, but I knew I had some flour in the bottom of that bowl that was going to come out, so I just dumped it all out on here. And you can see when I flour my countertop, it's not a thick layer of flour, it's just enough to keep the dough from sticking to the counter. So there's another sticky spot. So now the kneading process. When you knead, you basically are taking your dough, you're pushing it. That's a little sticky, so I'm gonna add some flour. You're folding it, and then a quarter turn. So you just do that over and over until it all comes together and it's smooth and elastic. So push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. Over and over. I'm moving the whole table. And then addressing those sticky spots when you find them. Push, there's the sticky spot. Fold, turn. And then once it's a nice, smooth, elastic dough, which I think we're getting to, you can see that looks nice. I don't know if you can tell. Come on, lighting. I don't like this. Oops, sorry. You can see it's a nice soft dough. It's not sticking anywhere to my hands. It's stretchy and elastic without having too much flour added. So I'm going to let this sit. I'm going to actually put it back into this bowl here. And we're going to let it sit for a while. I'll cook them later. So I'm going to get some cooking spray. I'm going to spray this bowl with the cooking spray. I'm going to put the dough in. Set it down. I'm going to flip it over so that it's covered in oil. See, that side has oil on it. And then I'm going to throw a towel over this bowl. And I'll let it hang out here in the kitchen at room temperature until I'm ready to make it into pretzels. I'll probably go walk the dog or something and then come back and finish that later. Now, if you look, I maybe have a cup of flour left here. I didn't use a ton of flour in the recipe. I might need it later when I punch the dough down. So I'm going to keep it here, and when I shape the pretzels, I'll keep it set out.